Okay, I think we can get started here. Could I first get a volunteer to take some notes for me in the agenda doc? Thank you, Sean. I'll stick a link in chat, wherever that is.
You want me to share in the doc as a screen share? Or
yeah, you could do that. Do that for now. Might be useful. Cool. So I think we're gonna start off with just a few updates around what's going on. So I can start that off. We released Calico 3.16. When was that? Last week? The week before? Time is blurring for me since I got back from vacation. But 3.16 was August 27th. Yeah. Which had some pretty cool stuff in it. So if you haven't seen the release notes, the highlights are eBPF dataplane being generally available. So Sean and team did a ton of work there on stability, security, etc. To get that GA. We also included Windows support for Calico VXLAN networking and network policy. So you can add Windows nodes to your cluster. And then another pretty cool feature was ability to configure BGP community string advertisement in the BGP configuration resource, as well as I think the ability to configure custom BGP ports for various peers.
I was gonna add that one. I think that gives us slightly better compatibility with, say, Metal LB, that kind of thing, because you can change our port so we don't conflict. Hopefully.
Yes, probably does. I hadn't spotted the Metal LB case specifically, but it's a good chat. We should probably reach out to them because I know there's been some issues there in the past. There's also a ton of other bug fixes and smaller changes that went in. But for that, you can check out the release notes. So we did spot some issues. We've done a 3.16.1 yesterday. One of the other changes that went into 3.16.0 was switching our install CNI container, which is the bit that runs as a init container on Calico node and installs the right files onto the host file system. We switched that from being a bash script inside of a, was it Debian or UBI container to being a pure Go binary in a Scratch container, which removes a bunch of, kind of stray CVEs and things like that, and should make that code easier to test, etc. But in the process, we introduced a couple minor bugs. So we've patched the ones that we've spotted in 3.16.1. So that's, I think there was an issue populating the etcd certificate fields in the CNI config, as well as an issue populating the node name field in the CNI config. So fixes for both of those have gone into 3.16.1, as well as kind of a whole slew of flannel migration bug fixes that had come in over the previous couple weeks. And then for both 3.15.3 and 3.16.1, we backported a change to make some of our iptables rules configurable. So it's basically a toggle switch for some rules that drop encapsulated packets from Calico workloads themselves. In most scenarios, you want these rules to be present to prevent a scenario where pods can try to spoof packets that get interpreted as our own encapsulated packets and thus bypass policy. But some users do interesting things like running Calico networked Kubernetes clusters on top of Calico networked OpenStack clusters. And thus you get this kind of double encapsulation where one of those you want the rules to exist, but you kind of expect the OpenStack network to be sending encapsulated packets. So this just adds a toggle. So if you're doing that sort of funky thing, you can figure it exactly how you need. Let's see. Calico 3.17 is on the distant horizon. We're still trying to gather scope for that and figure out exactly what we're going to do in it. I know the one thing that we have scoped into, I think, the past couple of releases, but it's always been pushed out for something else, has been automatic MTU configuration. Pretty keen that we get that into 3.17, so I'm going to be pushing for that. And then I think there are a couple other things bubbling around, but I'm not really sure what the full scope will be yet. I see Eloise, Nathan, or Ron. Do you guys have anything you'd like to say about Calico VPP?
Sure. I can start with since last time we did publish a new 08 version with added the VXLAN support. For some reason, we implemented the IPIP and not VXLAN, so we just fixed that wrong. We spotted a bug in the support of NAT outgoing with backends that were outside of the clusters. Something we found when testing Calico plus VPP on EKS. So we fixed that bug, and there were also a few other bugs where with default routes and UDP issues that we found while testing on Amazon Kubernetes. Another important change that we made is we switched the networking model from tap to tune interfaces. So that means that we, instead of having L2 interfaces, we switch to L3. That means that we don't have to assign dummy MAC addresses and IP addresses to them. We can just forward packets to them without having to do some 169 dot something dot the idea of the container issue. So that helped a lot simplify the networking model in 08. And that's pretty much it for the 08 release. And for the next things that are hopefully gonna come into 09, I'll let Alois continue on that.
Thanks, Nathan. So for the next things we're looking at, of course, our top priority is policies at this point. We're working hard on that, both on the VPP side and on the Calico VPP side. But apart from this, there are a few features that may be of interest. So we recently got a contribution for a wireguard implementation in VPP. So we'll look at implementing that as well. I saw that wireguard was highly praised in the last CNI benchmark. So we'll see if we can support it as well. And we are also doing a few fixes in NAT for ICMP. Looking at supporting AFXDP as a way to grab the interfaces for VPP, which would allow a more performant default without requiring DPDK, so without requirement for huge pages and so on. So it's going to allow us to deploy much more easily on different configs. And finally, we are doing a few scaling tests for the services load balancing. So stay tuned for that. We will likely publish some results on that in the coming weeks, most likely. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. That WireGuard contribution is very timely. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Let's see. Were there any other updates or things folks wanted to say? Eric, were there any operator things you wanted to talk about?
No. I don't. Yeah, no, I don't think I had anything.
I think maybe the only interesting thing there is that we're mid certification of the Calico 316 operator packaging with Red Hat. That just will get it into the Red Hat catalog and stuff for OpenShift.
That's just in the normal
process
process now for our releases, right?
Yep. I think not every patch release necessarily, but certainly for new minor releases.
Sure.
So for hot issues, I think I had a couple that I was thinking about. So I think the main one that I was wanted to bring up was, I think we've seen a few issues come in recently where like doing a cluster upgrade or some sort of similar operation causes connections between Calico and the API server to hang or time out. Sean, I know you've looked at a couple of these. I think we had reduced it down to an issue with client Go or the Kubernetes client in some way.
Yeah, I think the Kubernetes team are aware of this issue, that the Kubernetes client can end up disconnected but not actually spot it. And the underlying reason is that the keep alive on the connection is not enabled. So they use HTTP2 and it supports a kind of ping pong packet to make sure that the connection is alive. But that's not enabled by default, and it's not exposed in the underlying Go API that they're using. So they're trying to get the Go maintainers to merge a patch, which will allow them to set the flag that they need. And since the patch has been coming for a few months, and they've been waiting for it for a few months, they haven't put in workarounds in the client to kind of make that problem go away. They're just waiting for the real solution to come along, which is this flag they can just set to make it work. So we might need to do something to work around it. It's a little bit fiddly because it's about 3 or 4 layers down in the stack from where we are.
Yeah, that does sound fiddly.
Sean, is there some documentation or any links to any of this? We've been seeing similar things at IBM even with kubelet talking to the API server. So if there's any docs or anything more, you can.
There's a
put in
bug
there.
report. There's a Kubernetes bug report. I'll just drop a link in. I think I've got that handy.
Okay.
For kubelet hitting something similar, and I think they've put a workaround in kubelet, but they didn't put it in the kube client. They put it in kubelet itself. So there's a workaround somewhere floating around for this, but they didn't put it in the lower layer which we use. They put it in the layer above, I believe.
Okay. And then it seems like this has been around for a while. Is this something where you've only been seeing in the last month or so? Because it kind of popped up for us in the last month too.
So we had sporadic reports going back a little bit further, but just occasional reports that we couldn't get to the bottom of. But it does seem to be more common recently, and I'm not sure why.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's the same kind of questions we've had. So, all right. Thanks for that.
Yeah, interesting to hear that you guys are also getting a sudden uptick in incidents of that, because that was kind of the question on my mind of just like, why is this all coming to a head right now?
Yeah, we started seeing it in kube proxy actually, maybe a month or so ago. Yeah, it's been really strange. So.
Eric, I think I may have cut you off.
No problem. I was just gonna say, if you'd think if anybody can get something added to Golang, it'd be Google guys.
I think the patch may even have been accepted now, but it missed Go 1.14, so it might be in 15, or it might. I don't know if the 15 branch was cut, but I don't know. 15 or 16, it should land.
Well, either way, I think I was planning to dig a little bit deeper into whatever workarounds they'd put into kubelet and see if that's something we could try to apply in the meantime. And then fingers crossed we get that fix upstream in Golang in the next couple weeks or sooner. The other issues that I had on my mind were the ones that I kind of already talked about around the CNI plugin installation script and some changes there. I think the only thing to say there is just hopefully those are the only ones, but keep an eye out if you're trying out 3.16. That was a fairly substantial refactoring of that code, so there's certainly potential for kind of slight issues like that, where we didn't quite get the migration from Bash to Go quite right. Did anybody else have any issues that they wanted to bring to attention here? If not, then I want to give a shout out to Song, who's on the team here at Tigera. He's really been Mr. Windows for the last few months. It's not an easy area to work in, and he's done a really good job at buckling down and getting Calico for Windows into Calico 3.16, which is a pretty huge undertaking.
I wanted to give a shout out to Reza. They were working, I think, as an intern for Tigera, but they've done some good work with some microcade docs recently, and calicoctl plugin, which I think, I don't know, Casey, are you going to demo in just a few minutes? Isn't that the plan? Okay, yeah. So I think that'll be a cool thing for the community to be able to use that calicoctl plugin.
I know, I don't think Neil's on the call, but he had messaged me saying he wanted to give a shout out to GitHub user Fionera. Said that he or she reported a dual stack floating IP issue on Slack, and then this Fionera and Neil worked together on the investigation, and then followed through with the right CNI plugin fix and test, which Neil reviewed and merged.
Did anyone have anybody else they wanted to nominate? All right. Guess not. So I think
I was muted that whole time.
Yeah.
I was talking.
Yeah, you were. Did I not interrupt you oddly?
Well, that's when I realized it, is that I was trying to say something to you and you were just ignoring me. So I can do a very quick demo of the stuff Reza's been working on. I think he has classes starting again this week, so isn't around to demo it himself. But let me see if I can. Oh, Sean, you're gonna have to stop sharing so that I can. Cool. Can you guys see this terminal okay? It's the right size and everything. So this is a pretty quick thing. It's something that'll show up in 3.17. So I've got a Kubernetes cluster here. So the main thing that Reza did was a change to the way that Calico components and calicoctl determine their data store configuration, like how it finds and connects to the data store. So historically, we've defaulted to connecting to etcd, and users would need to specify etcd endpoints in order to find that. As more and more people are really just using Kubernetes API directly, I thought it was a good time to switch that default. So in 3.17, calicoctl will try to talk to the Kubernetes API itself first, and then we'll need explicit configuration to talk to etcd. We think that's pretty fine because you kind of need explicit configuration to talk to etcd anyway. So like you'll see in a moment, current behavior, if I just use calicoctl, this is with 3.16 version, it will complain that no etcd endpoints are specified. If I use my built from master calicoctl version, it's going to properly find my Kubernetes cluster. This is my own local build. And it's doing this without a data store type set. City endpoints. I've got no config file or anything. The other nice.
Cube config then.
Yeah, so by default, it's looking in the same place that pretty much every other Kubernetes like tool will look, which is this guy. So I've just got some stuff in there. But yeah, so to look in your default kube config, you can override that as always with the kube config environment variable. And then if you set etcd endpoints to something, in this case, I don't actually have an etcd cluster set up, but it will spot that you set that and make a guess that you're trying to use the etcd data store. So in this case, it's trying to look up some cluster information from it and failing because this isn't a real etcd cluster. So that should mean that, like, even though we've changed the default data store type, behavior should, for most scenarios, work the same because you're going to have this etcd endpoint set. So if you're using etcd, you should just be able to upgrade your tool, have this environment variable set, and it will do the right thing. But for most users and for new users who are coming in with the Kubernetes data store, they get a much nicer experience where they can just use calicoctl without having to muck around with configuration. The other kind of neat thing about this that Eric was talking about is that you can, because of this defaults change, you can kind of just take calicoctl and turn it into a kubectl plugin. So the kubectl plugin system kind of looks up anything in your path that is of this format, kubectl dash whatever. So if I move this there, then I can do stuff like kubectl calico get GNP, oops. And it will, I mean, it's kind of a superficial change at the moment, but it allows you to potentially add new features to calicoctl that would work as a kubectl plugin. But it's an interesting side effect of that change. That I'm sure lots of people will have creative ideas for how to use. So yeah, all our favorite commands work. That's all I had. Any questions on that, or comments or questions on anything that we can chat about?
I mean, that sounds like a really good usability improvement.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Hopefully it stems the flow of why is calicoctl not showing the data I expect it to type type issues we see. Well, if there are no other comments or questions, then I think we can end a little bit early. Is there anything else anybody wanted to talk about? Guess not. Well, thanks everybody for coming. I'll see you again next month. Take care.
See you guys. Bye.